I began drawing the winter in East Yorkshire, January 1st, actually. I think the first one, December 31st. And I keep going and drawing a small area, a little run road, and I was drawing the winter. And when you do, the winter is very colourful. I mean, I did realise the winter is more colourful than the summer, actually. And I've already done 40, but I intend to go to watch, it's just beginning the spring now in the north of England. We'll be back tomorrow night, and I'm going to carry on with the same locations as it changes. So I found a way to really deal with the spring appearing, but it will have to be naturally on quite a number of pictures, and you need the winter to show you what the change is. And eventually it might finish up about, well, I've calculated we can have 70 big ones round the room, and we're printing them because once I print them, I then work knowing about printing, knowing the range of colour, what the machine can do. So I start taking cognizance of that and do it. And that's a big work in progress now. And I'll be back to it Saturday morning. And it will end about mid-June, when the hawthorn is finished and the blossoms are finished. And already, as we put them up, I mean, my idea is as you look around the room slowly, you will see the spring emerging. So it's also like a Chinese scroll. I mean, moving around as you move through the landscape. And it's working very well. I was rather thrilled when I found, yes, you could do this, it's possible. And I only decided, although I began on January 1st, that was not my intention to print them all big. But I do have a very, very large studio. That's the first enormous studio I've had in Bridlington. And without that, we'd never have printed them big. Even though you're just doing it on an iPad, we wouldn't have printed them big. And when we did, we found they were very, very strong, as powerful as paintings, actually. And so we can do it round a very big room and work it out. And it's just going on now.
And you're working towards, as I understand it, a big
show
show at the Royal Academy.
Royal Academy in London next January.
Focusing on landscapes, right? Somehow?
The exhibition's called A Bigger Picture. So it's inferring there's other things involved. Yeah. You can see a bigger picture.
Well, nature has a great place in your work these days. It may have had also before, but it certainly as a motif. You see it rather dominantly.
Well, I mean, it's an old story, but you do get refreshed by nature. Yeah. There is an hint of the infinite there. I mean, and I've always done landscape. I keep going. I mean, the Grand Canyon. I've always, and I generally, I'm dealing with the visible world, so where you live is, I mean, for instance, in Los Angeles, I used to always live in the flat part of Los Angeles, so Los Angeles was straight lines to me. And then I went to live up in the Hollywood Hills, and the canyons like that. So suddenly LA became wiggly lines as well, and they appeared in the paintings rather quickly. Mulholland Drive, those things.
Yeah.
And so it's just reacting to where we are. But I mean, I haven't really moved back to England. LA is still my base there. But when I moved, I did go up to Yorkshire. My mother lived there, and I kept going back and realized the landscape did turn me on. I mean, I felt quite connected with it. And
it's the landscape of your childhood.
Yes, yeah. I know it. So, and then I realized how beautiful it was. And then I also realized being in LA for 30 years, I'd never really watched a spring. You don't have the spring. I mean, you don't quite have the seasons. Well, you do, but they're subtle. There's subtle changes in LA to know which flower will come out when. But, you know, in Northern Europe, it's a big change. I did point this out about, if anybody knows a Walt Disney film called Fantasia that was made in 1940. I remember seeing it when I was a child, and it had music. Leopold Stokowski was conducting it, and they had the best thing in it really was a Mickey Mouse version of The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Ducat's music, and but they did The Rite of Spring, Stravinsky, but Disney did great big dinosaurs clomping round. And I always remember thinking it didn't quite fit the music. But then I realized later, this was made in 1940, and people wouldn't have been traveling much. And living in Southern California, they didn't quite realize what the music was about, the spring. And somehow they thought it was a primitive force of dinosaurs, whereas really it was about nature growing up, coming up. I mean, it's a great big thing. And I thought, well, you know, if you live in Northern Europe, you'll know there's a difference. The Russians would know. I mean, Stravinsky was Russian. But I suppose in Southern California, listening to that music, they thought it was dinosaurs. And I didn't. I always thought it was... they'd got it wrong because they were in the wrong place. They didn't... the spring doesn't mean much in Burbank, California. Yeah.
Well, you've also always been depicting your immediate surroundings. I mean, if you think... We showed the retrospective here at Louisiana 10 years ago of your work, and it's filled with glasses, ashtrays, and whatnot, even spectacles, and reflections, and opaqueness, and all these things. What's the cult of your kind of cult of the very near object? Because we see it very obviously in this show.
Well, I must tell you, I'm a person who likes to draw. I mean, I like mark making, I like drawing. So I like looking at things. And, you know, there's a lot of ways to look at things. I mean, it's why I tend to think photography can be a bit of a bore. It's just one way of looking at something in a way. But actually, the iPad made me draw a lot more, and I was just constantly finding... I mean, remember in Bridlington, I started drawing the sunrise simply because I could see it from my bedroom window. For 3 months a year, I get the sunrise, and I can see it from my bed, actually, because we live on the East Coast, and it rises over the sea and things. But I did that because... I'd never drawn a sunrise before. I thought it might be a corny subject, but again, it's because of a luminous screen, a luminous subject, and here was a method of doing it. If I'd have just had a pencil and a piece of paper, I wouldn't have drawn it, probably. I'd have had to figure out how to do it in pencil, and I wouldn't have bothered, probably. Do you know, here's another story. Sister Wendy, do you know who she is?
Oh yes, the educationist.
Yeah, well...
I think you have to explain to a Danish audience who she is.
She's a kind of nun who did some kind of art talks on television. And she had a great outfit that she designed herself. I don't think she was a proper nun, I don't know. But anyway, I met her in LA. She came to LA. And I was invited to this small dinner. I said I wouldn't go if there were too many people because I can't hear that well. Anyway, I was sitting next to her, and the first thing she said to me was, she said, are you a constable or a Turner man? I said, oh, I don't know. Okay. I said, okay. Okay, what's the catch? And she said, Constable painted the things he loved. Turner went in for special effects. I said, well, Turner loved special effects.
Very good.
She wasn't that good.
I don't have to tell you that the closer Grand Canyon, a very major work that you have made, is already a hallmark in the collection of Louisiana, in the permanent collection. What is the link between this tour de force in paint and the works we sort of celebrate on this evening?
In
the show?
A link. Okay, the Grand Canyon always interested me because, first of all, it's a very large space that you can comprehend, meaning it's a space that's got edges and you can look into it. So I've always been rather attracted to it in a way. But it's also a place with no perspective. You have to look everywhere. There's no focal point. And that interested me a great deal. I also knew it wasn't easy to depict photographs because they're just one viewpoint. They don't show you the grandeur, they don't show you the bigness of the space. So I always thought it was a bit of a challenge to do it. I'm thinking around now how to connect it with this, but I'm telling you why I did it. And I'll tell you one reason why they were painted, the things were painted. In 1982, I had photographs of Grand Canyon elaborately, you know, with a lot of photographs like that.
What you call joiners?
Yeah, I did a few. And when I had an exhibition in Cologne in 98, was it, photography, they had a great big room and they wanted to put something in it. So I suggested, I thought we could maybe reprint quite big these photographs of the Grand Canyon. And we did, actually. We printed them on the color printer I had in the thing. But when I saw it up, I hated it. I thought, well, it looks flat, it didn't work, and I thought, that's because of the printing and photography. You've got to paint it. You've got to paint it with pigment and stuff. That's in fact, at that very moment, when I realized I'm looking at it, I think, well, it's not so good, it doesn't work. And afterwards, that exhibition was, I've forgotten the exact date, but the moment I left Cologne, I had to go to Paris, and they were planning to do an exhibition at the Pompidou, and I wasn't too keen, I wasn't ready, and I thought, I was trying to put them off. They said, oh, we've got the money, we're going to do it. And I told them they were doing it a bit wrong, and then I said, you should look at space and landscape. And they were showing me this space, and so I said to them, this was December, and the show was going to open the following December in Paris. So I told them, I was very bold, and I said, at the end of that room there'll be a great big painting of the Grand Canyon, and then at the end of this room, and I hadn't done them, but I intended them to do them, and I did them. Okay, how does it connect with, I still haven't told you, have I?
But you're also adding in your studio, you're adding screens next to each other.
Yes, I am actually. Yes, I mean
they're like, you know, if you want.
Well, actually, the Grand Canyon.
iPad screens next to each other. Yeah. You're filming nature. The idea of the Grand Canyon was also about moving and taking one view and then shifting to the other and joining it together.
You know, sometimes the reason the Grand Canyon was done in bits like that was because I'd photographed in bits like that. But when I started in Yorkshire painting pictures, we started doing quite big paintings outside, because they were made up of 6 canvases we kind of put together. And the reason we did this was because, simply because in the original studio I had, it was very small, and there was a limit to the size of canvas you could get round the stairs. And so I thought, well, if you want to do a big one, just put a few together. That's what you do, like I did with the Polaroids, make a bigger picture that way. And then I found it was easy to transport them. A lot easier. A great big canvas is rather difficult to transport, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm a practical person. I mean, most artists are practical. You figure out.
We've come to learn that. Very practical.
Well, yeah, and we've figured out. I mean, now I did very big paintings. I did one based on the Sermon on the Mount. We devised a method of painting very large pictures without ladders. I mean, that's, I thought, fascinating, because you can be very free on it. And I've done some, but at the same time, I'm working very small, actually, as well.
You often refer to something that I believe is a Chinese tradition or saying. You're mentioning the heart, the hand, and the eye. The hand and the eye is obviously
the Chinese
what we would usually
for painting,
describe drawing.
You need 3 things.
Yeah.
The hand, the eye, and the heart. 2 won't do. And I thought that was very, very good. Very true. The other thing they say about painting is it's an old man's art. I also like that. So.
Well, does that sense of the heart being present or a component together with the hand and the eye, does that also apply to the digital age? And what does it represent now in your quest for image making as we see it up there? Is that the nearness?
I don't know.
Is it
I'm
is it
going
David?
to take one break. I'm going for a pee. If you don't mind. Do you mind?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
It's very pragmatic, I would say.
But I am. I drank so much water in the beer. I'll be back. I'll come back.
Is it something running in your blood now? Is it that's the way you look at the world?
My friend Celia thinks the iPad was just made for me. She said it's perfect. I'm trying to think of, you know, I just happen to be an artist who uses an iPad. I'm not an iPad artist. I mean, it's just a medium. But on the other hand, it is a, you know, I'm aware of the revolutionary aspects of it. I'm aware of its implications for a lot of things as well. But I mean, I'm just a quiet little artist drawing on it, really. But I must admit it has made me draw a lot more. I mean, I always draw, but because I carry it around with me now, you know, I can put it in a pocket. I have a pocket here, but because you've always got it, and it is about speed and things. I mean, I think a lot of artists would like it, but I suppose you have to be, in artists who make marks, who like marks, but there's a lot of artists. I mean, I haven't finished with it yet. I shall go on and on. But I've stopped sending out. I send out some. I still send. You'll still get some. I'll still make some to send. But I'm also doing a lot of work on it which I won't send, meaning because it has to build up for something else. But I mean, I think. When we did the show in Paris, I did realize it's very early because not that many people have an iPad yet. Don't know what it is, and if you don't know what it is, what difference does it make the drawing drawn on an iPad? It's just another drawing if you don't know how it's done. It's just another drawing. On the other hand, it'll stand up as a image and a drawing. But you wouldn't know technically how you're doing them.
Is life more interesting at 73?
Yeah, I feel fine. Yeah. I feel...
No, you do, very obviously.
I feel very energetic. I mean, actually, I must say, when we took our big studio in LA, in Bridlington, 2 years ago, when I signed the lease, the moment I signed the lease for 10 years, I felt 20 years younger. And I think that's... I mean, I'm well aware that I can, if I get going, I can get energy back from something. I think that's so because you can get out of yourself if you start heavy working like that. I think it's good for you. I think that's healthy, myself, very healthy. That's why, I am assuming that's why Picasso could smoke and live to be 91. Because he was always excited by the world, thrilled to work in and get out of himself. So could Monet, who also lived a long life smoking away, didn't he? Yeah, I feel fine. I'm fine, don't worry. I am.
Good. I think this is a very appropriate time to say, David, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate this gesture of talking to us all here. And we know you can't wait to go back and see spring unfold in the north. Thank you very much.
Okay.